Hello everyone, I'm MVL, and in this video we're going to take a look at how I store and transport my Dungeons & Dragons miniatures, as well as my Pathfinder Pawns and accessories like maps as well. So, without further ado, let's get started. Here's how I currently store my Pathfinder Pawns in these folders right here. So, let's take a look at one of these folders. So, as you can see, for Pathfinder Pawns I use these 3-ring binders, which I have labeled. Now I actually got these binders from Amazon, but the pages inside I got separately from BCW, and I'll talk a little bit about those as we open up. This is one of the folders, a smaller collection called the Pathfinder Society, and this won't be a full collection video, so I'm not going to show all of the folders, don't worry, but I will show you the contents of this one. I have them organized from small to medium to large and so forth. These pages fit 3-ring binders. You can get different pages, but specifically for these pages, these are pages for tobacco trading cards, and they fit very nicely a good number of Pathfinder Pawns on individual pages. They're very good for these. Some people swear by coin pages, but these work great for me as long as you don't accidentally hold them upside down where the pawns might slip out. So I actually still have the box for these, and here it is. And as you can see, you can fit a lot of pawns on these pages, and I still have a couple left. And yeah, this is, I would say, a hidden gem for the storage of your Pathfinder Pawns. So I would definitely grab the BCW tobacco pages for your storage of Pathfinder Pawns. They're meant for the trading cards you get with tobacco, but they work perfectly well for this, as you can see. So I put my small Pathfinder Pawns on these, medium fit on them well as well. And then when it comes to the larger pawns, the large size and above, I have different pages for them, which you will see in just a moment here. So for the large ones, I use 9 pocket pages, which are traditional for trading cards like Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, or Magic the Gathering. You could use Ultra Pro for this, and these are Ultra Pro, as you can see here. You can get these for different ring sizes, but I specifically wanted the 3-ring binder so they would fit in the same binder as everything else, and that's what I got for these, and these work perfectly fine. So you can get 9 of the large Pathfinder Pawns on each page. And then when it gets to the bigger ones, which you can see back here, I got the 4 oversized pages, and these are for oversized trading cards like what you would have got with the Magic the Gathering original Commander decks. You'll get these oversized cards, and you get them with things like Plane Chase in Magic the Gathering as well, and Arch Enemy. And these are from Ultra Pro as well, 3-ring, and these fit 4 of the large things like your dragons and things like that. And then, of course, for organizational sake, I have my organization of the pawns listed. I also have these on a notepad as well on the computer, but it's good to have that information handy so you know what you've got. And I use Pathfinder Pawns a lot for small encounters, and if I want to have a lot of one thing, let's say Duergar here, it's much easier when we are talking about transport to transport a bunch of flat pawns like this. And I might perhaps use 1 or 2. Let's say this group of Duergar have a Necromancer. I might use a Necromancer miniature. They might summon a fire elemental, and I might use a miniature for those, but we'll get onto that when I talk about storage for minis. When it comes to transporting these, they're very easy to transport. The bases, they come in 3 base sizes, of course. You have the small, the medium, the small, and the large, and then the huge. So these I would generally just put in a grip seal bag, and I would just put them in that. I like to mark them, so that's what I do, and I put them in a bag. And pretty much you don't need to worry about them. You just put them in a bag, put loads of them in there, and that's fine. For the pawns themselves, because they are nice and flat, you can just go ahead and stack these up and put them in a grip seal bag as well. It's one of the easier things to store and transport to your games. You're not going to have much of an issue just putting these in a grip seal bag. So that tends to be what I do. I just put them in a grip seal bag and I make sure they're nice and protected. And then I would take that to my game. There's not a lot that can go wrong there. They're nice and easy to transport, a lot easier than D&D models. So speaking of D&D models, so this is my current method of storage for Dungeons and Dragons miniatures. These are storage drawers from a supermarket. They're pretty cheap and flimsy, but they do a good job of separating the different minis. And you can actually stack these if you take off the top here, which is pretty handy. Now I'll give you an example of what I would put inside these, but you could label these as well. I've got these small, medium, and large set up like this with some example content. But this is how I would store my minis. Not transport, mind you. I will also be showing you how to transport these miniatures, because these are pretty flimsy and they're good for storage, but you wouldn't want to take these anywhere. So this is what I use for my storage. Let's go ahead and see how I transport my minis as well. So that's how I store D&D models, but how do I transport them? Now here's one nice and easy way to transport them, and that's with a little bit of bubble wrap and any kind of box. So you could also use the box that you get your pre-painted models in, and you could just simply put your models right here. This is a dryad. You could just put them in these bubble wrap bags and then pop them in this box. That is one way you could do it. And as long as you've got a lot of models in there, they won't be rattling around too much. And you should be okay to transport your models like that. Another example of that I have here with this really useful storage box. It's a small storage box and it's the right size to fit in a bag. And I have a couple of models in here. Here's a fairy and here's a centaur. And as you see, these models are pretty good. The models, of course, with the material they're made out of, they do kind of, sort of, the weapons aren't quite straight as they should be. You can use a hairdryer or hot water to sort that out, but really, a lot of the time they just don't want to be the way they should be, and they sort of end up a bit weird because of the material they're made out of. So that's one of the things with these pre-painted models. But even though a lot of these models are pre-painted, here's a tabaxi. I do like to keep them secure. I know a lot of people like to put them in boxes. You could put them in grip seal bags or bubble wrap. A lot of people like to put them in boxes without any protection whatsoever. They will damage the paint on them. Here's a horse, by the way. If you do that, and this is a lovely horse. We don't want to damage my lovely horse. We want to have it maintain its aesthetic. And I have a couple of large minis in here as well. And as long as you pack these fairly well, they're not going to get damaged. So this is the way I take a small number. When I'm taking a large number of minis, you need a large box. So let's check out how I do that. Now here we have the old GW Warhammer cases, and as you can probably tell, one of the issues I have with this case is that it is absolutely gigantic. But that's not the only problem, other than the fact that this case is massive. There's another problem I have with the foam, and that problem is, as you can see here with my Eldar, that to fit anything that's not traditional size, you have to kind of cut out a space for it, which is fine for the most part. But then you end up cutting up the foam, and you can't fit regular models in it. So this is for my Elder, but as you can see, there's a number of places here where I've had to cut up the foam to fit various things inside, such as flying stands and whatnot. And you end up with just a lot of spaces cut out of the foam. And as you do that, it's good to fit it for a purpose, but you end up not being able to fit other things in there as well as you could have done previously. So that is a bit of an issue with this foam. What I do like is the new DW cases, which I'll show you right now. You just saw the old Warhammer box, and here is the new Citadel storage box, and it is quite a bit different, let me tell you. Now, as I mentioned, I do prefer to take Pathfinder Pawns for the rank and file, so you save a lot of space, but if you've just got to take your actual miniatures, then this is a great option. Now, I actually recommend getting the size up from this. This has 2 sheets of foam in it, and there is one that is just a little bit taller than this that takes an extra sheet, and I would recommend that over the one that I picked up here, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. But we'll open this up, and I have a lot of minis in this one. You could essentially fit twice as many in the next stage up. So, as we take a look here, we can see that the new type of foam they have here is really good because you don't have to cut out any of it, and you can fit a lot of stuff in here. And I have, let me tell you, a lot of stuff in here, and I've taken out some stuff as it is, so there is still lots of space for extra stuff. And you know, I fit a lot of medium minis in here, and for the most part they're not so much going to bump into each other. Here's a couple of small ones, a couple of medium ones right here, a lot of large ones, a lot of beast forms here in case you have a druid or you want to run a wild encounter. Got a lot of minis here as well, just random minis, a lot of demonic minis there as well. And this foam is really good for that. Despite how it looks here, well, it's in the case, it doesn't misform too much. The only problem is when you take it out, you do have a tendency for models to slip under the foam, which is a bit annoying, so you have to reorganize it. But as you can see, you can fit a lot of stuff in here. I got a lot of animals in here, and pretty much nothing has really gotten damaged, like the weapons. So here's a druid with a staff here. They're pretty well kept. Nothing's really got misshapen as much as it would, you know, normally do, more than it would normally do from the weapons themselves. Like I mentioned before, sometimes the weapons are a little bit bendy, and that's just the nature of the models. But yeah, like, there's even extra space in here to fit more stuff if you wanted to. I fit some elementals in here, as you can see, some bears. Well, I will say that there is one issue with this, and I have had one model get damaged from this. And the model that I had damaged was this Emissary of Erebos, and this I use as a giant snake. So the actual model is from the plane of Pharos, and it is a subservient of the god of death. But never mind that, I use it as a giant snake. But this model has a lot of these tiny little things coming off of it, and one of these snapped off. But I think if you didn't load the case up so much, this still fits in here pretty well. And why I would recommend getting the larger case is particularly if you wanted to fit some of the big models, like you wanted to fit some of the flying creatures like these. I think you could fit them in. You just have to pretty much dedicate that row to some of these. I know that the giant ape I have does actually fit in here, because I have put it in there before. And you would have to pretty much take out a lot of other stuff to fit it in. But I do know that this does fit in here. So what I would recommend pretty much is that you would, I mean, that's actually better than I expected it to be. I would recommend that you get the case size one above this, so it's no wider, but it is taller. And it fits an extra set of this inside, so it has 2 more sheets of foam which are connected. And I would pretty much recommend you use the second half to just put your big miniatures in, because I don't think a model like this would get damaged if it was in by itself. I think it would probably be fine if there was nothing else pushing against it. I think it would probably be fine, but I'm a little nervous to put it in as it is, with all of these little things that can be snapped off. But this might be a case to, you know, combine some of these storage elements and maybe put some of these things in a box like this with some bubble wrap, some of these things in like that. Either way, this is one problem you have when you do bring actual minis to an outside game where you have to take them to that location. You're gonna have to think of storage solutions. So this is what I use for my minis. Let me know what you use in the comments, and perhaps you have a better idea than me. I currently use a combination of Pathfinder Pawns and D&D minis to make my monsters for when I'm transporting about, and I do like to have a wide selection of creatures at my disposal in case the mood takes me to be particularly nasty as a dungeon master. So yes, let me know what you think, and I will also show you how I transport my maps and my dice as well. So speaking of maps, I actually use this old case which came with dungeon tiles. You got a lot of dungeon tiles in this case when I bought it. And I do have dungeon tiles in here for the most part. I like to use dry erase maps, and I like to use existing maps. So in here, I tend to just put a lot of maps in here. And these are the sort of things that I can use for a quick encounter if I know exactly what I want it to look like. And these are pretty well. Likewise, if you have this stocked up, you're not really going to damage anything. But to be fair, for the most part, I actually use the Lokai Book of Battle Maps quite a lot. You may recognize this because I recently did a review of this, and this is a fantastic product with 62 pages of battle maps. And I've been using this a lot recently because this is a great storage saver, because you can take a lot of... I would actually probably recommend getting one of the smaller offerings they do than this, but this has a lot of dry erase battle maps and a lot of scenes that you can use, and in particular you could of course just use the blank page at the end and draw on your environment. So this is something else I use, and it's really good. It saves you a bit of space as well. And then finally, in terms of dice, I just use one of these. I got this from the dice shop online, and this is a dice transport tray and rolling tray. The dice have all jumbled up. I normally like to keep them rather separate, you know, all of the d8s next to each other, all of the d12s next to each other and so forth, but they've got jumbled up from being in transport. And sometimes I do take some combat risers like this that allow you to keep models in the air. And I also like to take my laser pointer if I'm far away from a map, so I can point to locations to where people can go. But I also take this as a rolling tray as well, so I can have that and I can roll my dice. And there you have it. That's how I store and transport my D&D minis, my Pathfinder Pawns, and accessories as well. If you like the video, be sure to leave a like or a comment to let me know what you think, and don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content. Thank you for watching. I've been MVL, and I will catch you next time.